Hello, hello. This is Sheri from the Sheri Kaye Hoff Show, where we focus on living joyfully and successfully in your life and business. You can find us at sherikayhoff.com. That's SherikayEHoff.com. Marilyn Julia Brown is a licensed psychotherapist, registered yoga teacher, speaker, writer, podcaster, and certified energy healer residing in sunny Southern California. Marilyn uses her talents for writing, music, and speaking to cultivate spaces for healing and liberation. She firmly believes true healing must address the mind, body, and spirit, and her mission is to connect each person her work touches to the powerful well of healing energy that lives within them to promote collective healing across the planet. Hi, Marilyn. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. How are you?
I am doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we have some great topics to unpack. So first of all, I would love to have you share a little bit about your story, how you started doing what you're doing today, and what led you to that path.
Yes. So my story, I think it started as a child, definitely coming to this work. I'm somebody that has always just liked to communicate with other people, and I've always been a feeler, very a sensitive child, very kind of open to emotions and able to pick up on other people's emotions. And so going into the field of psychology and becoming a mental health professional was just kind of a natural progression for me, just based on who I am and also not wanting to take like the difficult road. Like I really wanted to do something that resonated with me and felt good, and that I could, be able to connect with people and provide some sort of service, but also not like exhaust myself academically. And so that's kind of how I ended up in this work. And in 2015, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which is a chronic autoimmune disorder. And so that's something that having to cope with that and kind of getting hit with that at a period of my life where things were really happening. I had just started my therapy practice and had just gone into business for myself. And then I get this major diagnosis that really just kind of changed the way I saw my work, and that I really wanted to create not like a work-life balance, but a life-work balance where really my life and my wellness was the priority. And I really saw an avenue for myself to be able to just kind of step out on faith into my business and fully go into working for myself at that time. Because of the stress of the diagnosis, it really just kind of pushed me to take a chance on myself. And now fast forward to now, I've become a yoga teacher. And so that's something that I'm doing as well. And also an energy healer. And so just really kind of blending all these parts of myself into this holistic lifestyle that I think is really, really important. And I feel like we really need at this time. It's like we're in a time where things are happening so fast and people are suffering in so many different ways. And it's like we're all needing something. And so for me, that comes from the inside out.
Yeah, well, I can relate. It's like, parallel universe, 2015. I had a near-death experience, where I went into the light and I had a shocking diagnosis. I had never been sick or on medication before. And, thankfully I had a miraculous healing from that. But what I'm interested to know, because this is what happened for me, is that, I think I always had things in pretty good perspective, but when you face that you might not live, 90 days or a year or 5 years, it's almost like something magic happens, because you just get down to the micro moments and the deep appreciation of everything and like such a clear sense of priorities. And, I actually look at that time in my life. I spent a few days, in denial and, being depressed. And then I just made up my mind, well, whatever my life is, it is, and I'm going to do everything I know how to do to heal myself. But if for some reason I don't heal completely, I'm okay with that too. And I just made peace with everything. Now it's been 7 years later. So, you know, 50% of the people that had what I had died within 12 months, and then the rest pretty much die within 5 years. So I've, made it to 7 years, and, I'm not sick or anything like that. I love your story, and it just so resonates with me. And I think the message is really that everyone can take exactly where they are right in the moment and do something with their purpose, their passion. You don't have to have everything lined up perfectly. You don't have to have the perfect education, the perfect family, the perfect anything. It's just, take that passion, those natural skills that you have, and share them with the world.
Yes, yes. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing your story with me, because it really, really resonates with me that finding peace, I think, really is like magic. Like you said, I think that that's kind of that cheat code, as as a lot of the young folks call it. It's like that thing that really does help you when you can find peace with illness, with your own mortality, with the recognition that, like, nothing is promised and that's okay, and be able to really live and drill down into those moments. And that's a lot of what I work with clients on, and I teach my clients, is that we can be mindful at any point. We can be aware, and we can do this work to open our eyes to the beauty that's constantly all around us. And that creates this gateway for things to come in, and for opportunities to come in, and for connections to come in, and really for abundance to flow, which I think is something that we're all, hoping for and seeking, that just that ease that abundance can bring.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think you said something when you were first telling your story about, I interpret it as you went with your natural skills, and I think sometimes people dismiss what comes naturally to them because they think, well, it's so easy. This can't be the thing that I'm supposed to do for my whole life because it's just too easy. But those are the things that you're meant to do. And what comes easy for you seems impossible to someone else. And so, lining up with those strengths and that ease, I just think, like you said, it opens the door to abundance, opens the door to happiness, peace, and really, being able to take your mission forward. So speaking of mission, you have kind of a big mission. So talk about how you see that, and, what you're doing to move your mission forward.
Yes. So that's a good description. It is a big mission, and it gets confusing even for me at different times. But my mission is really to um, bring liberation to everyone, to all beings, and to be able to help facilitate that liberation to all beings, and that freedom. And I really think that we can experience a level of freedom when we tap into our own healing well, into our own resource well, our own soul. And so that's really what my mission is to help people to recognize that at any point they can find that freedom and that liberation that they're seeking by tapping in and really connecting with their own mission, connecting with what is that inner deepest voice telling you, what is important to you, and how can you bring that into the world. And so I'm so grateful that I feel called to do this work and to be able to bring people to a place where they're able to just have enough quiet, have enough safety to be able to even listen to that voice within. Because I think that's a lot of times the challenge, is that so many of us are in environments where we aren't safe to be able to really even kind of find out, what are you here to do? And we get kind of stuck in just having to just survive, which is a big challenge in and of itself. And so even in the midst of all of that, there's still this beautiful place that you can go and can connect with, to be able to start to liberate yourself from the inside out. And so that's something that mission comes about with doing my work as a therapist, with teaching yoga, with the energy work. I'm also writing and speaking and just really trying to share this idea with the world, with as many people as I can come into contact with. And also using that to still connect with those parts of myself that I haven't really nourished yet. I think that being able to recognize that I'm doing what I love, and I'm definitely feel like I'm very much walking in my purpose with the work that I'm doing. And also there's other things that I'm still scared to do that I haven't moved into action yet, and being able to nourish those spaces and be able to call myself into newer spaces as I evolve. I think that's one thing that we struggle with, is kind of feeling stuck, feeling like we have to stay one way, that kind of stay in your lane mentality. And it's like, what does that mean? I think that like we have multiple lanes that we can occupy in multiple spaces that we're meant to show up. And so trying to open myself up to that, and also continue to open up the people that I work with to that as well.
Yeah. And I think it's humbling and healthy to realize that there are parts of ourselves that we're still working on. So we're not the people who have it totally together, who are telling other people how to get it together. We have that evolution process going on, with ourselves. And I like to say to people, okay, so you've been surviving. Congratulations. If you're here today, you survived, it's like, yay.
Yes.
And then let's look at thriving and look at, how can you thrive? And I like to, I have a course called Thriving All the Time. And I like to have this attitude. I think it's a mindset. It's a way of being, of constantly being in a state of thriving. And to me, it's not always about money or, outward success. It's, maybe even not even a third about something like that, but it's an attitude of, okay, in this moment, like, we've had some grief in our family this year, and, some really tough things that as a family we have gone through. And even in those moments, it was never like, oh, this is gonna, end us, or, oh, this is it, I can't make it through this. It was like, okay, this is hard, and it's okay that it's hard. And, how can I still be in a thriving state of mind, of believing that life can be thriving even when it's hard? And so, and I know you like to talk a lot about thriving. So, please share with us your view on thriving and how you help your clients get to that.
I completely agree with your view. I think it's mental. I think it's a mind state, a state of being. I think it's a state of awareness, being able to be in that thriving mind state. And even in the midst of constantly doing what we have to do to survive, there is still this place that we can recognize that we're thriving. I like that you talked about grief, because I think that grief is one of those experiences that really challenges us and challenges our perspective, and what we know to be true. And I think that's one of the times where, the ways that we traditionally deal with grief, I think, are helpful in that we come together, we connect with our community, we spend time with the people who we're grieving with. And I think in doing that in that community, that's where the thriving happens, being able to be together. I spent a month with family back in Chicago earlier this year. We were losing a family member, and I was so grateful that I could just be there together on the day-to-day, dealing with things that might seem that were really painful, but also knowing that because of the love that we have with this family member and also for each other, this is just a beautiful process of how we show up for each other. And so even in that felt like thriving to me, of like, this is a beautiful way to show up and experience this, one of the most challenging things that we experience in life. And I think that's thriving. And I think for everybody, there's the mental piece, there's that mind state that's important with thriving, that mindful perspective. And also thriving is how you're showing up on a day-to-day basis. And what does that look like in your own life? And so for each person, their formula for what it looks like to thrive might be different. You know, for some people, it's going to be being really social and making sure that you get out and have social connections regularly and that you're spending time with friends. For someone else, it may be doing things more quietly, spending time with their journal, engaging in ritual, different things. But it's about finding those spaces where you feel completely authentic, where you don't feel like you're being judged by others or yourself. And you're able to just experience life and feel that authentic joy. And that's where you know, okay, these are the things that I can do to thrive. So how can I bring more of this in my life?
Yeah, I think grief, you just said so much that I totally align with. And I think that grief is something that, I witness people grieving in so many different ways. I mean, there are people who grieve and it's like they grieve for 10 years and, never get on with their lives. I mean, they feel like they can't, that they're just grieving. And, I've lost my brother at a young age. And I had people tell me when I was a teenager that, oh, you'll never get over this. It kind of fostered this brokenness, like I'm broken. And, but I never felt like that, but I've been a spiritual person since I can remember. Like my first memories felt that, I felt like I was close to God. I mean, I just always had that feeling. So even in the face of that grief, I knew I was just going to keep on going on. Like I knew it wasn't an end, that it was, an opening to something. But one of the things that I think is interesting is, we want to have the space for grief. Like we don't want to say, okay, get over it and, be harsh with ourselves that way. But still life does move on. We have children, we have responsibilities. And one of the most beautiful things that someone told me about grief was, compartmentalize it in the space of, give yourself time to grieve and, even say like, okay, I'm feeling really sad right now. I'm going to journal like you talked about, or, I'm going to sit in this chair and, reminisce about this person and then allow yourself to step back in to life and, embrace. And, I have kids. I can't, go, oh, something bad happened, so I'm not doing anything for anybody else,
Yeah.
And so maybe just speak a little bit more to that. For, I know a lot of people have lost people recently, and
yes,
and there's been tragedy, and of course, there's always tragedy going on in the world. And how do you see that balance between grief and, and I almost think when I grieve, I'm sad, but there's also something really beautiful about it. I mean, there's a beauty in it. And I almost feel like I'm thankful that I loved this person this much that I feel this way instead of just trying to push it away or trying to think about how terrible it is. So, I just have the sense that there are people out there who just need like a little bit more on the topic of grief.
Yeah, I think that I love that you said that when you're grieving, there's a sadness and then there's also something else. And I think that's what's important to remember. Grief is not just one emotion. Sadness is a part of grief. There's also anger that can be really, really valid and a part of grief that we need to allow space for as well. There's also just that reminiscing, that kind of feeling that you have, and there can be joy in grief. There can be laughter, remembering funny conversations and experiences that you had with the person that you're grieving for. And so I think one thing that's important to do is to not fight your feelings, whatever those feelings are. And that's oftentimes what we tend to do if like tears start to come up and we push away, don't cry, like those things that we do to fight our feelings actually just create the space where our feelings will get louder and they will do more to get your attention. And so being able to validate and honor what comes up, if you're at a place where you're not able to cry and like allow that emotion to really fully present itself, being able to save it for later and say, you know what, I'm recognizing that I'm feeling really sad today and I need to give myself some space to cry later. And right now I'm going to refocus on whatever is going on with my kids or whatever, however I need to show up. But making sure that you're giving that space to those emotions is incredibly important. And also, I think sharing that with others. I think we often have this expectation, like right after we lose someone, people are checking in a lot. We get a lot of connections. Everybody is concerned. How are you doing? That's all wonderful. And also, after that kind of wears off, those first couple of months, and it gets really quiet, a lot of times that's where the feelings really start to come up. And so being okay with sharing that with people, with being able to still talk about it and share, I am still actively grieving, this is still coming up for me, I think is important, because we have this idea that like, it's like, okay, on to the next thing. It happened, you had the services, like, okay, like your time to cry is over. And it's like, no, we may cry for that person for the rest of our lives sometimes. And that's okay, because I think that's that love expressing itself. And that's a really beautiful thing. And I think if we're able to allow ourselves to feel whatever those feelings are as they come up, we get that other piece. We get to feel that beautiful love that is everlasting. That love is still enduring. And that's why we're feeling this. And that's a beautiful thing to allow yourself to like sit in and connect with.
Mm-hmm. I just think that's such a beautiful way of expressing that. And I feel, people listening really need the comfort of your words. So thank you so much for sharing that. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more about your work. You've mentioned authenticity, a few times. So let's, maybe go into that topic and, about some of the ways that people can show up more authentically, in their work. Like, I think you're specifically talking to, therapists, healers, people like that, but really everyone, could create the space for being more authentic.
Yes. I think authenticity is like another kind of untapped superpower that we have. And so being able to start to figure out what does actually showing up authentically look like for me. It's interesting because I think sometimes uncomfortable emotions that we can experience are actually signals that there's something going on that maybe we need to attend to in our own lives. And so, for example, jealousy, envy, that emotion is really uncomfortable. We oftentimes don't want to admit that we feel jealous. When we feel it, it just feels very icky. And it's like, just get this away from me. But being able to actually, for me, that emotion was able to, that emotion provided the pathway for me to be able to tap into what does my authenticity look like as a therapist and as a business owner doing this work. I would see other therapists, and they just had a certain sense of freedom with how they would present themselves and kind of advertise themselves and market themselves. And I thought, gosh, that looks great. I wish I could do that. And I would feel that little bit of like, and then I started to ask myself, well, why do I think I can't do that? What am I listening to that's telling me that I have to show up in a way that I know isn't really me, in a way that maybe is considered very professional, but doesn't feel authentic. And so starting to kind of question that and recognize that when I'm seeing what somebody else has and I'm feeling envious, that means that I want some of that. And that's okay. We do want what other people have. And it's about finding ways to cultivate that and create that for myself. And so I think that's a big part of it, is being able to look at what's coming up and when are you feeling uncomfortable, because that's probably a sign that you're not showing up in an authentic way, and being able to start to challenge that and to start to question, okay, what would it mean for me to show up authentically? What would that look like? There are certain questions of safety and certain things involved where people aren't able to do that. And in those circumstances, I think that asking yourself those questions will help you to kind of figure that out. Mm-hmm. And then I think the other piece that's incredibly important with living authentically in any realm is support. is having a community, having people where you feel comfortable sharing your message, who you are, being yourself, and being validated for that and being encouraged for that, and just being able to kind of experience those spaces and feel that calm and that ease that happens when you're in the right place. Because it's like when you can feel that and you can kind of tap into what that feels like, then you can take that to other spaces and kind of know, okay, when am I out of alignment? When am I somewhere where, okay, I'm feeling anxious, I'm worried about how people are viewing me, I don't know that this is the space that I should be in. And so it's kind of like you have to learn with your system, with your whole mind, body, spirit system, you have to know what it feels like to be in alignment, so that when you're not, you know that it's off and you can do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking for a lot of people, safety is a big thing.
Yes.
And some safety is like a real valid concern, and some safety is just a protection mechanism, like, oh, I don't feel safe. And maybe that person rarely ever feels safe.
Yes.
And like for me, I am a very open-hearted person. I'm, very comfortable sharing. But I would have times like early in my career where I would have that moment. Maybe I'd get off a podcast or I'd get off an interview, and I would think, I'd have that uncomfortable feeling of maybe oversharing, like being too vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did, and I teach a lot of my clients to do this, is I work a lot with intention. And so I thought, okay, because when I'm really in the moment, I never want to put myself in the place where I feel like I shared too much, and I don't mean this from, not being authentic, but just from a standpoint of there's a time when you're ready to share something, and sharing it before you're ready to share can be painful and damaging. And so I set this intention that exactly the right words are coming out of my mouth at the right time with the right people. And ever since I set that intention, I've never worried about oversharing, because I felt like, okay, whatever I say, whatever I share is truly what I meant to share with that person in that moment of time. And it created a lot of peace for me. And it also, I think, created a boundary where, because when you share, you kind of deepen the bond with someone. And so I think sometimes if you're a person with a lot of feelings, sharing can be a way to where you're working to deepen the relationship, but maybe you're getting a little too vulnerable yourself in that moment. And so that intention really protected that for me. So for people who are, really in touch with their emotions and share a lot, maybe that's something that would be helpful to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the power of setting intentions, I mean, you see just how powerful that was for you to set that intention for yourself, and to truly believe it, to truly put that out there, and to know that like it's going to be okay, change that whole experience for you. And I think that's really, really important to pay attention to as well, that we can set that intention to show up as our authentic self, and the right people will connect with us, the right people will find us. And I think that's really the beauty of showing up authentically, is that like you get the right people find you.
Yeah.
The clients that need me are the ones that find me. And it's really, I see this, it amazes me that like I don't get calls for clients that really aren't a good fit. It hasn't happened in years, and it's amazing to me. But it's also because of how clear I am with who I am, and with sharing who I am, and being okay with that like the people that I'm the right fit for will find me, and the ones that don't, like, that's okay, because there's a right person out there for them as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said that, because I think in the last 15 years, I've only had 2 clients that ever, weren't the right fit, and, had to fix it, fairly quickly, of recognizing, okay, this is the wrong fit. But what it did for me, instead of going, oh my gosh, this is so terrible, I went to the place of, okay, what in my energy field brought this in? And I cleaned up that part of my energy, that, okay, because we do bring things into our lives to teach us lessons or maybe realize, where we have a disconnect with ourselves even. And so both of those situations turned out to be like amazing growth points for myself and maybe the other person too. But that's a miracle. Like I've talked to people all the time who will say, oh, I have this nightmare client. And I'm like, really? I don't even know what that's like to experience that because almost everyone that I have a conversation with is that person that I meant to talk to.
Yeah. And I think that just has so much to do with how open you are, in how you show up and how you're able to really show up in this open place where the right people are able to connect with you. So you don't even have to worry about those, nightmare bad clients. Yeah. It's incredible. I think people can have such a different experience with the same thing, just depending on how you're showing up, and I think that's a lot of what I try to teach my clients is that like you can show up to something and have a completely different experience. And so even comparing to like other therapists, I had people tell me that it would take 15 years of having 2 clients at a time to build a private practice that would support you. I mean, I had so many therapists, so many people training me, telling me, oh no, you have to work for somebody else and just take a couple clients on at a time. I didn't have that opportunity. I just had to take a leap and it was successful, And so I think that's that other piece is like being able to not compare too much because it's like we all have our own beautiful, magical experience that's meant to be our own.
Yeah, I think it's worth it too to just ask the question, how do I want to work with people? Like if I could, not look at any blueprint that's out there, how would I want to most show up with people and for people? And don't listen to the person who says, well, you must do, like you said, it would take you 15 years, a couple clients at a time to build a practice. You didn't buy into that. And and maybe some of it is from being new, but there was something inside of you that said, no, I believe there's a different way. And that's exciting to me. So tell people how they can find you. You're just an incredible person. And I love what you what you stand for and what your vision and mission is. So.
So people can find me on my website. It's marilynjulia.com, marilynjulia.com. And so that's my hub where you'll find links to my podcast. You'll find a link to Liberated Well, which is my creative newer business, and also a mindful way counseling, which is my therapy practice. So, and all of my social media is there as well.
Okay, great. And I know you have a free gift for people. So, and I will have the link on my website, but you can go ahead and direct people. How can they tell us what it is and how they can find it?
Yes. So it is a 7-day journaling workbook that I created. And so this is actually a guided workbook that will guide you into just doing some deep reflection and journaling, which is one of the best ways to get clarity. And so if you're looking for clarity on anything going on in your life, sitting down with the journal is a great way to do that. And so this is a full workbook that provides you with 7 days of journaling and also just information on how to journal, the most effective ways to do it, how to kind of set the stage for that. And so that's available on marilynjulia.com. There's a link there where you can receive that.
Okay, terrific. So we've talked about so much here today. What is the one thing, like if I could say, take action today, what would be the one thing that you would tell people to do that they could get started on right away?
Honestly, I would tell people to start journaling. I would tell people to start journaling. And if people say, I don't like to write, I get it. Writing is not the only way to journal. And so I would offer to people to record a voice memo on their phone or record somewhere. That's also another way to journal, but basically getting what's inside out somehow, because we just have so much going on in our head, so many thoughts all the time. And so really taking time and space to be able to get those things out actually provides a sense of clarity and freedom that you wouldn't believe. So yeah.
That's great advice. I'm a avid journaler too. So I love that advice. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone. Wherever you're listening, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I will talk to you soon. I love you and thank you so much. This episode is sponsored by the Living Your Vision course for creating your optimal life. This course is for creating and fulfilling your dream. Make your dreams your reality instead of a someday idea. Set your vision for your life in motion. Move from trying to be just a little bit better and shift to deliberately creating the life you want at the level you want. Most people are not purposely thinking small. They just have never considered or allowed themselves to think bigger or even on an epic level. Even big thinkers, perhaps you're one of them, often say, I just don't have time to devote to developing a detailed vision of how I want my life to be. What's stopping you from creating your vision the way you really want it? What if you let go of anything that is stopping or blocking you? What if you stepped into your creative zone and designed a compelling vision that drove all of your daily habits and decisions? You can check out the Living Your Vision course at sherikhoff.com. That's SHERIKAYEHOFF.com. And you'll want to go to the coaching and courses tab.